Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be all about different celebrity deaths that just don't add up / have never made sense to me, and I just feel like a lot of people have different suspicions and conspiracy theories surrounding these different celebrity deaths. And a lot of them actually people recently have been making ties to P. Diddy involved in these deaths, and we're going to talk about those last. So let's just talk about some celebrity deaths in general that just never sat right with me. All right, the first celebrity death I want to talk about is Heath Ledger. I think that this is a celebrity that passed away in a very strange circumstances that I don't think a lot of people really talk too much about, but I do think that there was a lot of weird stuff in regards to his death. It's very tragic. He was an incredible actor, and at the time of his death, he obviously had just played the Joker. So Heath Ledger had claimed that playing the Joker in The Dark Knight Rises definitely impacted his mental health. He really threw himself into the role and was essentially method acting as the Joker, who is supposed to be a literal psychopath, and he felt like it absolutely affected the way that he was as a person. He became super anxious, he would have sleepless nights, and he would take medication to manage his anxiety, but also he was just isolating himself and struggling with, again, exhaustion from severe insomnia. So on January 21st of 2008, Heath Ledger was in his Manhattan apartment, and he was reportedly working on his lines for a script. And he spoke to his sister Kate Ledger on the phone that evening, who warned him against mixing medications, but he assured her that he was fine. Sadly, the next day, on January 22nd of 2008 at around 3 p.m., Heath Ledger's scheduled masseuse arrived for an appointment, and she entered the bedroom and found his lifeless body. The part that has never made sense to me about Heath Ledger's death is Mary-Kate Olsen's involvement. Yes. Mary-Kate and Ashley, Mary-Kate Olsen, Michelle from Full House. I do not understand this, but for some reason, the masseuse, instead of calling 911 after finding Heath Ledger dead, she calls Mary-Kate Olsen. That's the first person she calls. Why? The thing that confuses me about the whole Mary-Kate Olsen situation is there was really not much about their relationship publicly available. It seemed obviously the two knew each other, and a lot of people thought they were in a romantic relationship. Some people just said that they were friends, but there is no definitive proof that they were in a romantic relationship or how they really knew each other or even how well they knew each other. But I would gather that if the masseuse in New York City finds Heath Ledger dead and the first person she goes to call before 911 is Mary-Kate Olsen, who's in California, something about that will never sit right with me, and I will never understand the connection. Mary-Kate Olsen, after receiving this call, allegedly sent her private security team over to Heath Ledger's New York apartment, and I guess the masseuse finally called 911 at around 3:36 p.m. Again, emergency responders arrived and pronounced Heath Ledger dead at the scene. Now, his official cause of death was kind of a mix of several different prescription drugs overdose, and a lot of people have a lot of conspiracy theories about this because some of the circumstances just seemed really strange. For one, the fact that the masseuse went to call Mary-Kate Olsen makes legit no sense to me. I will never understand why you would call anyone before calling the police after finding a 28-year-old unresponsive, because you would assume maybe this person can be revived, we need a medic immediately. But to call Mary-Kate Olsen and wait half an hour to call 911 is actually preposterous, and I don't understand why that happened. And I do think that there is a suspect explanation as to why. And a lot of people think it's because maybe Mary-Kate Olsen was the person who was supplying Heath Ledger with drugs. And while I do think this theory makes sense, it still does not really explain why the masseuse called Mary-Kate Olsen first. That's what doesn't make sense to me. Because, of course, basically the public scrutiny of this theory is that they thought it was strange that Mary Kay Olsen's private security arrived at the scene prior to the authorities getting there. And two, Mary Kay Olsen actually was subpoenaed during the investigation of Heath Ledger's death. And she basically refused to speak to authorities unless granted immunity. And she ultimately denied providing Heath Ledger with any of the medications that were found in his system. But it just makes so little sense to me because, like, even if we had the theory, like, yes, let's say Mary Kay Olsen is the one who set Heath Ledger up with this drug dealer. That does not explain why the masseuse would call Mary Kay prior to calling 911. Why did the masseuse even have Mary Kate's phone? I don't know. It just doesn't add up, and it never has. And ultimately, his death was just ruled an accident. So, like, we're never going to know if there was actually foul play involved here. But I always have thought that there has been something strange, and it's been something that I think no one really talks about, is Mary Kay Olsen's connection here. I'm not even saying Mary Kay Olsen did anything wrong. I just don't understand and would like a detailed explanation from the masseuse as to why the fuck she called Mary Kay Olsen before she called 911. Because that will never sit right with me. I just think a lot of that is very strange. But ultimately, there's a couple theories as to why Heath Ledger died, or how, really. For one, I guess the most popular theory / I think the thing that has contributed to mostly the truth, like I think most people believe this, is that, you know, the Hollywood pressures and method acting was what killed him. Like, playing this very dark, intense role of the Joker in Dark Knight Rises just involved very intense psychological preparation that basically got him addicted to prescription medications because he couldn't sleep at night and he had high anxiety, and ultimately that led to his death. Now, I think that's the most logical explanation. However, people think that there was foul play involved and that Mary Kay Olsen's involvement is just very strange. And I have to agree, I just don't understand it, because I believe the reason why he died is because he was a method actor and played the Joker and was struggling a lot. I think that makes sense. But Mary Kay Olsen, why was she? That will never add up to me. And it always makes me feel weird. And some people even think that it is pointing towards, like, the Illuminati, and that this death was orchestrated by the Illuminati in some way. And I don't know, because I never thought Mary Kay and Ashley Olsen would be involved with the Illuminati. They don't really even do any thing in the media anymore, or acting or anything. So that's always been strange to me. But what if they saw too much when they were children that made them not want to be in the Hollywood world as adults? I don't know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I don't fully understand why this happened. I don't know Mary Kay Olsen's role in this situation. I don't even know if she has a role, but I would say that regardless, there are a lot of unanswered questions here that I think should be talked about, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Another celebrity death that has never sat right with me, that involves other celebrities, is the death of Natalie Wood. So Natalie Wood was a Hollywood icon, and she died under very mysterious circumstances in 1981. Her death remains one of the biggest unsolved Hollywood mysteries of all time, and in fact, her case was recently reopened, so maybe we'll finally get some answers. So at the time of her death, she was married to an actor named Robert Wagner. Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken were aboard their yacht, the Splendor, and it was anchored near Santa Catalina Island in California. And the yacht captain was named Dennis Davern. So basically, the timeline of events here is November 27th, 1981. This was the days prior. Natalie and Robert arrived at Catalina Island for Thanksgiving weekend, and Christopher Walken joined them. There were a lot of rumors and speculation, innuendo and outuendo during this time about Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood's relationship. A lot of people believed that Robert Wagner had some really weird jealousy issues and was very jealous of Christopher Walken and Natalie's friendship. And I kind of understand where this is coming from, but I would say to invite the guy on a boat. Actually, you know what? No. Because that happened in Desperate Housewives. Carlos Solis, Victor Lang, and Miss Gabrielle Solis. So maybe that is a thing that they would think of. I don't know. I just feel like that's insane. Regardless, those were the rumors that were swirling around at the time, was that there was something more to Natalie and Christopher's friendship that was making Robert jealous. On November 28th of 1981, the group dined at Doug's Harbor Reef restaurant, and witnesses reported that they were heavily drinking and there were heated arguments between Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner. So the group left dinner and went back on the yacht. And apparently Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken were arguing about her career because Christopher Walken believed she should continue working, but Robert Wagner wanted her to stay home and focus on family life. Then a pretty loud argument broke out between Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood, and allegedly it escalated into screaming and breaking glass. Some sources, including the captain, claimed that Robert Wagner smashed a wine bottle in anger. So that night, after they got into a fight, Natalie never went to bed. So then in the early hours of November 29th of 1981, at around 1:30 a.m., the Coast Guard was called because Robert Wagner and Dennis Davern actually failed to locate Natalie Wood on the yacht. So they knew that she was no longer on the boat. And at 7:44 a.m., Natalie Wood's body was found floating near the Blue Cavern Point, approximately a mile from the yacht. She was wearing a red jacket and a flannel nightgown. So the thing that was pretty strange about Natalie Wood's death is that there were a lot of aspects of it that just didn't really add up. For example, her cause of death was drowning and hypothermia, but she did have significant bruising on her legs and arms and face, which initially was attributed to her falling into the water, but after further research, that didn't seem very plausible. This case was closed pretty quickly, but there were always a lot of inconsistencies with witness statements and autopsy findings that fueled different rumors. So the case was actually reopened in 2011, and that is because Captain Dennis Davern released a book called Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendor. And in the book, he basically alleged that Robert Wagner was the reason for Natalie Wood's death. Dennis Davern claimed that Robert Wagner delayed the search for Natalie and discouraged him from calling authorities right away. And so in 2012, her death certificate was actually changed from just an accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. The bruises on Natalie Wood's body also were deemed consistent with a struggle, though no foul play has been officially declared. And then, 2018, Robert Wagner is officially named a person of interest in the death of Natalie Wood. So now officially Robert Wagner is, in his 90s. He's on the list of as being a person of interest. I don't know if they will ever figure out exactly what happened because Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken both remain very closed off about the situation. They don't talk about it ever. And when they do, they just deny any requests by law enforcement whatsoever to comment on the situation. I don't know. I've always thought this was a suspicious case, but I've always thought it's even weirder that Natalie Wood and her mother went to a psychic before and they told her to stay away from water. Like, that's just insane. And Natalie Wood was also terrified of water her entire life. What the hell is that? I don't know. That's more of like a supernatural explanation, but I do think that there was foul play here, probably by Robert Wagner, and probably about her relationship with Christopher Walken, especially since Christopher Walken was inspiring her to keep acting, while Robert Wagner wanted her to stay home and be a family person. I kind of think this makes sense, but let me know your guys' thoughts on it. All right, now the next few deaths that we're going to be talking about all lead back to P. Diddy in a very strange way. We're going to start with the death of Aaliyah, because this is actually more linking towards Jay-Z rather than Diddy, but obviously people are linking Jay-Z and Diddy because they're pretty good friends, so people think that the Carters are also involved with all of the shit that Diddy was involved with. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just telling you what the people are saying. So Aaliyah's death has never sat right with me, but could Jay-Z really be involved with the death and plane crash of Aaliyah? I don't know. There's something very strange about it, and I do not think enough people talk about it, honestly. So basically, here's what happened. On August 25th of 2001, Aaliyah was set to fly on a chartered plane from the Bahamas to Miami. And she ended up feeling extremely anxious that day, and she was an extremely anxious flyer in general, but for some reason, she was very apprehensive about getting on this plane because it was much smaller than she anticipated. They also were told by the pilot that the size of this plane could not handle Aaliyah and her 7-person entourage and all of their luggage. Like, it couldn't hold that up. But Aaliyah's team insisted that she needed to be in Miami that night because the plane was already 2 hours late. They were stressed out. They wanted to get on that plane and get to Miami. Aaliyah refused to board the plane. She was not having it, and she was just like, I'm not going on that fucking plane. And she actually had a pretty bad headache that day, so someone gave her a sleeping sedative so that she could take a nap in the car. Aaliyah was then carried onto the flight unconscious. The flight that she refused to go on, says she doesn't want to go on it. Do not get me on that plane. She is brought onto the plane unconscious. And of course, the flight took off at 6:50 p.m. and only got to about 60 to 100 feet in the air before nosediving back into the ground, killing everyone on board. And again, it's just so scary and sad that Aaliyah did not want to go on that damn plane. The reason that people think Jay-Z is involved specifically is because Jay-Z kind of was obsessed with Aaliyah. So basically, Jay-Z would always try to hit on Aaliyah. Men were really creepy towards her when she turned 18. Like, there was like a countdown for her turning 18. It was gross. And Jay-Z would always attempt to date her, but she always refused. So one of Jay-Z's best friends named Dame Dash, they were actually actively competing against each other for Aaliyah's attention, but ultimately Aaliyah chose Dame and ended up dating him. Simultaneously, so you think Jay-Z kind of got over it. He's like, all right, we'll just be friends. He starts dating Beyonce. The theory goes that Aaliyah was Beyonce's biggest competition at the time. So when she died in August of 2001, a lot of people speculated whether or not it was actually Beyonce and Jay-Z who had set this death up so that Beyonce would be the biggest artist of all time instead of Aaliyah, which I'm not saying that that would have happened or wouldn't have happened. I don't know. But I do think that it is an interesting theory, and a lot of people who are connected with the whole P. Diddy situation and have been talking about it, like Jaguar Wright, claims that Jay-Z was absolutely involved with Aaliyah's death.
Allegedly, Sean Carter is responsible for enacting Hype Williams to put Aaliyah on a faulty plane to move her out the way as punishment for rejecting him, and so he could level up Beyonce, who was struggling. Let's just say allegedly that happened.
Do I think it's true? I don't know about Jay-Z and Beyonce of it all, but 100,000% I do think that there was intention with this plane. Whether it's just negligence of, you know, ignoring what the captain said and like thinking that they were above, you know, whatever, because they needed to get this celebrity out there and she needed to go to Miami to film a music video, whatever. Either way, there's something wrong with what happened to Aaliyah, 100%. It's never sat right with me, especially just because she did not want to get on that plane. She did not want to get on that plane. And someone drugged her and forced her on the plane, which is actually crazy. All right, more so tying to Diddy directly, we're going to talk about the death of Brittany Murphy. This has always been a very strange death in my opinion. So Brittany Murphy died in 2009, and a lot of people had a bunch of different questions surrounding her death. It was very strange. She passed away of pneumonia and anemia, which is going to be important later, and that was just obviously strange. She was in her 30s, she was young, healthy, and then to make matters worse, 6 months later, her husband, Simon Monjack, died of the same pneumonia and anemia. It just made no sense. This death has always been super suspicious in my opinion. For a long time, I thought that it was actually government related because leading up to Brittany's death, she believed that her phone was tapped and that the government was listening to her because she had defended one of her friends. So Brittany Murphy actually spoke out in defense of her friend Julia Davis, who was a former Customs and Borders Protection agent who was basically just exposing things about Homeland Security that just were off, and the government in general. And she claimed that ever since then, she was being watched by the government, and a lot of people think that the government killed her and her husband. Now, I've always believed this theory and thought it made a lot of sense, and Brittany Murphy's father himself believes this theory. I just feel like it's always added up, in my opinion. However, when all this P. Diddy stuff was going down, I noticed that there were a lot, and a lot of other people have noticed, that there's a lot of connections between her death and the death of P. Diddy's ex, Kim Porter. So Kim Porter is the mother of P. Diddy's children, and there's basically a pretty solidly believed theory that P. Diddy was involved with the death of Kim Porter. She was allegedly writing a tell-all book at the time of her death. It's been released since then, but she died of pneumonia, just like Brittany Murphy, in November of 2018. So again, it was really strange for a young woman who was healthy to just be dying of pneumonia. It made no sense, and a lot of people in Kim's life have always pointed at P. Diddy for this. Not only that, but everything that's gone down with Diddy, a lot of people allege, and her book also alleges, that she found tapes and things about the freak-offs that were just absolutely horrific and could have sent Diddy to jail forever. And she had access to those tapes, but before she could do anything with them, Diddy killed her. That's the theory, and I definitely believe it. Of course, there's kind of a lack of hard evidence here, and it's a lot of hearsay, but what we do know about Diddy, it kind of tracks. So, Kim Porter, at the time of her death, she died writing a book, allegedly. The tell-all book, a lot of people claim is not true, but a lot of people also claim it is true. But this tell-all book really went into detail about how she had these tapes of the freak-offs, and she wanted to expose P. Diddy, but she was scared he was going to kill her. And then all of a sudden she dies. And after her death, her house is broken into, but the only thing that was stolen was her laptop. I mean, I just feel like that speaks for itself. I've always felt like her cause of death was super strange, because as soon as I heard pneumonia, it made me think of Brittany Murphy, because that was always my question mark with Brittany Murphy, is what is the death of pneumonia? Like, I don't know why these young people are dying of that. And why does it seem like so many people connected to P. Diddy also die of pneumonia? Well, Brittany Murphy has way more of a connection to P. Diddy than I thought originally. Again, when I first heard about Kim Porter, the only thing that was really noted to me, or like a red flag to me, was that they both died of pneumonia. And I thought that was strange. But Brittany Murphy's actually way more connected to P. Diddy than you would probably imagine. So for one, Brittany Murphy and Ashton Kutcher actually dated in the early 2000s. I'm sure you heard of it. And during that time, and still at least up until his arrest, Ashton Kutcher and P. Diddy were actually really good friends. Not only that, but Simon Majak, who is Brittany Murphy's husband at the time of her death, and he also succumbed to the same pneumonia death that she did. He also had connections to Diddy through his personal trainer, Harley Pasternak. This was like a celebrity trainer, and he was very close to P. Diddy, and he trained Brittany Murphy's husband, which again, kind of a weird connection there. And to make it all even weirder, a man named Ed Winter was the deputy Los Angeles County coroner who did both the autopsies on Brittany Murphy and Kim Porter. And now he suddenly died in 2023 from natural causes. It's weird, okay? It's weird. I want to point out that Kim Porter's children have denied most of these allegations. I mean, I don't think they talked about like the Brittany Murphy stuff, but they've said that Diddy didn't kill her. They've said that the tell-all book isn't real, but a lot of Kim's close friends allegedly were the ones who leaked the book, and they haven't said anything. Is all I'll say, at least publicly. So, I don't know. And also, what do you expect the kids to believe? They're obviously going to want to latch on to the fact that their father is that's their only living parent anymore. I don't know. It kind of makes, you don't want to believe that your parent would do that. But something about it is just dark. I don't know what the connection is exactly. I don't know why Brittany Murphy would have been killed by Diddy. Maybe she knew too much from Ashton. Something about it is just horrifically weird. Like, could it be coincidental? I guess. but I don't like it. All right, the last celebrity death that we're going to be talking about is Whitney Houston. And her death really coordinates with P. Diddy because it coordinates with a higher up version of P. Diddy known as Clive Davis. Clive Davis is known to mentor P. Diddy. A lot of people say, including Jaguar Wright, Clive Davis is the top of the totem pole of shitty people, and he is the one who essentially invented P. Diddy. But Clive Davis worked very closely with Whitney Houston as well. And in 2012, Whitney Houston died under very mysterious circumstances, and Clive Davis had really weird behavior surrounding it as well that I didn't even know about. So on February 9th of 2012, Whitney Houston attended the rehearsals for Clive Davis's pre-Grammy party. He has an annual pre-Grammy party, and she was supposed to be there. Reports say that she seemed a bit disorientated and anxious. That same night, Whitney Houston reportedly got into a heated exchange with singer Stacey Francis and had a very erratic public appearance with scratches visible on her body. And observers described her as sweaty, disheveled, and acting erratically. And then, of course, on February 11th of 2012, Whitney Houston was found submerged in the bathtub of her suite at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. A lot of people have had a lot of speculation in regards to her death, but I don't feel like many people until recently have been pointing at Clive Davis, and I do think it's because of all of this Diddy stuff. So Clive Davis, the weird thing about it, Whitney Houston was at the Beverly Hilton because she was going to his pre-Grammy party that was supposed to be the night that she died. On February 11th of 2012. She was going to be performing at this party. She was very close with Clive Davis. And Clive Davis decided to proceed with the party the night that Whitney Houston died. Insane. Like, actually insane. Not only did he have a party after one of his clients, the probably biggest client ever, died tragically, who was supposed to perform at this party. The party was being held at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and he still had the party the same day that she died. Is that not fucking nuts? A lot of people believe that Clive Davis had a connection into Whitney Houston's death, and maybe Whitney Houston was trying to expose, the different things that Clive Davis and P. Diddy like to get up to. Who the hell knows? But either way, I find her death to be extremely, extremely suspicious. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, though. How do you think it connects back to Diddy? Do you think it does? Or do you think the fact that she knew Clive Davis was just a coincidence? Personally, I don't think so. The fact that he had a fucking party that day is, actually insane to me. But regardless, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these celebrity deaths. And if you guys want me to do a part 2 of this video, there are honestly so many more deaths that are suspicious. I purposely left out the members of the 27 Club because I'm going to do a whole separate video on that. But regardless, that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.